it's still considered to have participated in the fight, thereby granting its summoner experience points. To that end, the male protagonist had no choice but to let his grasshopper summoned beast sacrifice itself heroically. Thanks to the grasshopper's selfless act, after the wild boar was slain, the protagonist successfully obtained the corresponding experience points. If he continued in this manner, his level up would be only a matter of time. However, hunting wild boars was easy art. When taking down 1 or 2 boars was manageable, his levels increased, passing. Hawaii's hunters between Walton County, especially since the Lord was wasn't the angel hunting board with wild boars for a year. As the Tumsy made the hunt even more Tumsy. In response to this situation, the protagonist came up with a solution: train more villagers to gain assist points. The Lord would supplement the hunting party with new members, though these newcomers had no levels and 0 combat experience. As long as they stepped in to deliver the final blow just before the wild boar died, they could, like the protagonist, gain assist points and earn experience. First, they'd use this method to raise their level. Once their strength reached the required standard, actually joint down will only be a matter of time. Meanwhile, the more people involved, the safer creature hearts would join eating the Lord ways the hunting food we get. Axel ate the hunter with ease. I casually said the ridiculous idea was multiple of all time. Before he knew it, 3 months had already passed. The good news was that, relying solely on gaining experience through assists, the protagonist had successfully climbed to level 6. With the blessing of his summoner's innate talent and the attribute boosts provided by his summon beasts, his current strength was already enough to surpass most adult neighbors group, who possessed D-level strength, yet he already lost in an all-wrestling match against the protagonist. But if he were to compete against Har, En's father, he'd suffer a crushing defeat. His father's strength was top-notch within the C-level range. Judging from this, the protagonist's current strength probably fell somewhere between C-level and B-level. His father had also promised that once the protagonist could beat him in an arm wrestling match, he'd allow him to truly join the hunt, and for the protagonist, it was merely a matter of time. But then came the night beast, good wild boars and hammers with natural beast in a predictable armor. But when for the match behind him lights, the protagonist really began to gain experience points behind him. Damn for the boy, and soon it was June, and sure enough, the protagonist's level remained stubbornly stuck at level 6. Yet surprisingly, his summoning skill had successfully risen to level 4. Each upgrade of the skill brought a leap forward in his strength. After this latest upgrade, 2 major changes occurred. First, the protagonist could finally summon first-level summoned beasts. Leaving aside the beast's sim strength, the key point was that the attribute beasts that profoundly increased along with their level. In other words, at this point, the protagonist could already beat his father in armors and nerfs. Second, a new storage skill could be ever. This in review of this skill pointed is the increased form space. Auto-grid speaker, an infinite storage space, was an incredibly valuable ability, but at first, the protagonist was puzzled by it. BF. Set on his past gaming experience, essential items tended to appear only when needed, and right now, he had no pressing need to store anything. Just as he was completely confused, the very act of preparing to summon a first-level beast unveiled the mystery behind it. The system prompted him that summoning a first-level beast required consuming a first-level magic stone, a requirement he had never questioned before. Previously, summoning a low-level beast only required moving the magic pool of flesh mana, but to reason the magic pool requirement, there was insistently demanded for magic stones. Fortunately, in this way, only Imperial grade and higher magic stones were rare and valuable, while first-level magic stones were low value and virtually ignored. The protagonist had managed to accumulate quite a few simply by picking them up off the ground. But just when he thought he'd be able to summon fully once he had the magic stones, the system reminded him again that the magic stones had to be placed into the storage space before they could be used. At that moment, everything became clear and entirely logical. After all, as summoning needs skill in people, the moment that magic stones are followed and keep increasing, it wouldn't be practical to carry tons of magic stones away. The storage still was something certainly a problem. This time, the protagonist successfully summoned his first ever first-level beast, which gave him boosts to endurance and agility. The second, Double A. As a second-type tiger, purely offensive type beast that provided 10 points each to stamina and attack power. The third was an eagle, whose eagle eye ability allowed it to scan the surrounding environment. The fourth was a grass-type beast, whose special skill was healing. The fifth was a stone-type beast, whose special skill was harming. Though it seemed like the protagonist was alone, he now possessed competitive abilities in offense, defense, reconnaissance, and healing. It was precisely at this moment that he finally realized why the summoner class could be considered the strongest profession a single summoner could rival an entire army. Yet as a serf, he couldn't leave freely. If he wanted to level up by hunting magical beasts, he'd first have to become a commoner, and there were only 2 ways to do that. One was to pay the Lord 10 gold coins. Given his current circumstances, it would take him quite some time to save up that amount. No one knows when or even at this date will ever coin. Second, obtaining the Lord's Huron Proof was as simple as a single point run. Learn one to its name become commoner. At first, the male protagonist as a smith, the syncopile as a usual. If, almost frequently, in the year he turned 8, the Lord himself decided to visit the village for an inspection. The reason was that the Lord had grown curious about the village's long-standing method of hunting wild boars. Of all the surrounding villages, only this consistently killed the highest number of wild boars each year. The village chief knew full well that the protagonist was deeply involved in all of this, so he specifically appointed the protagonist to be in charge of welcoming the Lord. This presented the protagonist was an excellent opportunity to win the Lord of Thea in charge of the Coiniconi. To this day, the board arrived this week. The Cogni Burn saw Keferi English from the Stava, female. Since this day the Lord had set a wild boar community to make their zone spirit to use. He planned to have the cavalry assist the villagers in their hunt. But to his surprise, the protagonist stepped forward to stop them, insisting that there was no need for the cavalry's help. The village's existing manpower alone could handle the task. The protagonist's confidence piqued the Lord's curiosity, but Zemo wore an expression of utter disdain, dismissing it all as mere boasting. The protagonist Din took offense at Zemo's oddity. Dismayed, Viola D, the Lord and his entourage straight to the Hadith grounds, determines to prove his words through action. He arranged to the Lord and his to watch from the entourage until Asper with the untrue view, where they could prove his leading turn hunting crosses and fall. Then, the hunting team officially launched its operation. First, a group of young children took on the role of drawing the wild boar's attention. Next, the encirclement team moved in, using a massive shield to trap the boars. While the boars were immobilized, the spear-wielding team stepped in swiftly to deliver the final blow, ending the boars' lives in one smooth motion. The entire hunting procedure was clean and efficient, leaving the Lord utterly astonished. After all, in this world, wild boars were ordinary beasts who were secretly magical creatures, leaving the cavalry's efforts were utterly been able to achieve such feats than efficiency. Did they, a gore pursuers, a growing mouth before his roaring eyes. Just then, an unexpected twist occurred. Two wild boars suddenly broke into the cavalry's formation. As the Lord and his party prepared to rush in and offer assistance, the protagonist stopped them. Explaining calmly, he said, "Don't worry, it's just two boars. Even if we had to deal with two at once, our village's hunting team can handle it effortlessly. Right now, we've got plenty of hands on deck. All we need to do is split up into two grow. Robson took down both boars simultaneously. It turned out that Everything's a protagonist had invented a two-to-group free-riding method. As the number of wild boars simulcreased, the new coordinated drew with the Guinness Thurinis to witnessing the numbers rise significantly. Not only had the available manpower greatly expanded, but the surplus loot had allowed the villagers to upgrade their equipment on themselves with shields and armor, making wild boar hunting now a piece of cake. On this hunt, the team killed 3 wild boars on the spot, and adding to the 7 already taken before the Lord's arrival, they already completed half of this year's 20 boar quota in just a few days. Seeing how calmly and steadily the protagonist had handled the Intafa, the Lord grew even more impressed. He immediately asked who'd come up with the strategy for hunting wild boars. The protagonist didn't yield the truth he immediately put his come out there. The Lord would normally leave him, so he shattered all the credit onto this trial. After witnessing the villagers' highly efficient hunting skills, the Lord decided to reward them generously. Every farmer who participated in this hunt would be granted commoner status. The protagonist never could have imagined that commoner status he'd long dreamed of would come so easily. What he didn't realize was that the Lord's generosity wasn't simply out of admiration for them, it was because increasing the wild boar hunting quota a year after year had always been the king's mission. And given that their village was the one that hunting most, receiving this reward was entirely justified. Either way, this meant that the protagonist had finally gained this freedom though it could thwart freely depart Hunstons and level up. But before the protagonist had even gained promotion as free to pilot at leveling up, the Lord abruptly changed the subject and announced that he'd given extra reward to the protagonist's father, the man who'd been the greatest contributor to the hunt. Then he asked the father what he'd like as a reward. To the protagonist's utter dismay, his father actually requested that the Lord allow the protagonist to work at the Lord's residence even if it meant just being a lowly servant's assistant. He'd gladly accept. This request made the protagonist feel as if the sky had fallen. For most people, getting a job at the Lord's residence lets seem like a dream come true as to a protagonist if thoughtfully falling into the gnarly trap. Working at the Lord's residence might seem out to be even less free than being a job. Getting vessel having no chance to kill out a lot mothers to level up. Yet faced with his father's request, the Lord readily agreed. Throughout the whole encounter, the protagonist had left a deep impression on the Lord as someone clever and quick-witted, and the Lord was happy to keep such a child around him. The scene was filled with mixed emotions. Some villagers were overjoyed, while others were heartbroken. The protagonist was racking his brains, trying to figure out how to refuse, but tracked as soon as the Lorkians consent, his father burst into his joy. Seeing his father's contentment, the protagonist trying to sell unable to bring himself to say no. He just finally listening to his joy, if least, following the father bring out live. Is the father builds, the bridge itself. He felt deadly reluctant to part with the male protagonist, especially his childhood sweetheart, Krina. Before their separation, Krina proposed that they have one last duel of battle she feared might be their only chance to see each other again. Naturally, the male protagonist couldn't refuse such a request. In all their previous confrontations, he'd always come out badly beaten. After all, Kree possessed the innate talent of a 3-star sword saint. Yet no one knew that those humiliating defeats were actually the result of the male protagonist deliberately holding back his true strength. In fact, thanks to the attribute boosts providing back his summon beast, his actual ability had lent his brother Vashdream. Soon fell, the tanks of the creature provided. The male protagonist climbed aboard the Lord's carriage and set off alongside the Lord and his entourage, returning to the castle. Although he'd never once dreamed of becoming a male servant in the Lord's manor, after 8 years of life as a servant, he'd finally earned the status of a commoner and now, at last, he had the chance to step into the bustling city. And so, his journey as a summoner was just beginning.